Desember 28 TH ke 2014 Indonesia AirAsia Flight 8501 takes off from Surabaya, Indonesia, bound for Singapore. On board are 155 passengers and 7 crew members, many of them families looking forward to a New Year's holiday. The Airbus A320, registration PKXC, climbs into the early morning sky. It's a routine flight, one of thousands that crisscross the skies over Southeast Asia every day. But this flight would not reach its destination. 42 minutes after takeoff, Flight 8501 disappeared from air traffic control radar, leaving behind a profound mystery and a trail of heartbreak. What happened to this modern airliner in the middle of a storm? Today, we delve into the gripping investigation that pieced together the final moments of Flight 8501, revealing a complex chain of events involving a tiny technical fault, a series of unconventional actions, and the unforgiving forces of nature. This is the story of a tragedy that sent shockwaves through the aviation industry and taught us crucial lessons about the delicate interplay between human and machine. The search for Flight 8501 began immediately, but the Java Sea was churning with bad weather, hampering the efforts of search and rescue teams. For 2 agonizing days, there was nothing. The world watched, hoping for a miracle. Then, on December 30th, debris was spotted floating on the water's surface, and soon, the first victims were recovered. The heartbreaking discovery confirmed the worst. The plane had crashed. The focus of the mission shifted from rescue to recovery and, crucially, to finding the aircraft S2 black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. These devices held the key to understanding why a perfectly good aircraft fell from the sky. For nearly 2 weeks, specialized ships equipped with acoustic ping locators scoured the seabed. Finally, on January 12th and 13th, both recorders were retrieved from a depth of about 30 meters. The data they contained would paint a chilling picture of the flight's final desperate minutes. The world waited for answers. With the black boxes in hand, investigators at Indonesia's National Transportation Safety Committee, the NTSC, began the painstaking process of data analysis. The flight data recorder, or FDR, provided a second-by-second account of the aircraft's systems and movements. The cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, captured every sound from the flight deck, the pilot's conversations, the automated warnings, the chilling sounds of the unfolding crisis. What the investigators uncovered was not a single, catastrophic event, but a sequence of smaller problems that spiraled out of control. The initial clue was a recurring master caution alarm that had sounded 4 times during the flight. It was an alarm the pilots had encountered before on this very aircraft. It pointed to a problem with the rudder travel limiter unit, or RTLU. The RTLU is a critical component that protects the aircraft's vertical tail fin from excessive stress by limiting how much the rudder can move at high speeds. So, what was wrong with the rudder travel limiter unit? The investigation revealed a tiny, almost insignificant flaw, a cracked solder joint on a circuit board within one of its 2 control channels. This cold solder joint would intermittently fail, causing the system to send an error signal and trigger the master caution alarm. Maintenance records showed this specific fault had occurred 23 times in the year leading up to the crash. The typical procedure for pilots was to simply acknowledge the alarm and reset the system, which would clear the caution. On the first 3 occasions it happened on Flight 8501, the crew did just that. But on the 4th occasion, things took a different turn. The pilot's actions, likely born out of frustration with the recurring issue, would deviate from standard procedure and set in motion a disastrous chain of events. They decided to try something more drastic, something that went against their training and the manufacturer's guidelines. Instead of just resetting the system, the captain decided to try and fix the problem by pulling and resetting the circuit breakers for the flight augmentation computers, or FACS. These computers control the RTLU, the rudder, and key parts of the aircraft's fly-by-wire system. Pulling these breakers was a maintenance procedure, not something to be done in flight. When the first breaker was pulled and reset, nothing changed. But when the second FAC circuit breaker was pulled, something critical happened. This action not only disconnected power to the faulty rudder limiter, but it also completely disengaged the autopilot and the autothrust. More importantly, it switched the aircraft's flight control law from normal law to alternate law to alternate law. In normal law, the Airbus A320 is a highly protected aircraft. The flight computers prevent pilots from making inputs that would push the plane beyond its safe operating limits. Won't let them stall, overspeed, or bank too steeply. But in alternate law, many of these protections are gone. The pilots are now flying a much more conventional aircraft, one that requires direct and precise handling. Suddenly, the first officer, who was at the controls, found himself manually flying a 60-ton jet in challenging weather conditions without the safety net he was accustomed to. As soon as the systems disconnected, the aircraft began to roll to the left. The first officer responded, but his initial input was slight. The plane continued to roll, reaching a bank angle of 54 degrees far beyond a normal turn. This abrupt maneuver, combined with the turbulent weather, caused the aircraft to lose lift and enter an aerodynamic stall. It began to climb sharply, then plummeted from the sky. On the flight deck, the situation descended into chaos. Stall warnings blared through the cockpit. The pilots were receiving conflicting commands and a barrage of auditory alerts. The cockpit voice recorder captured a scene of confusion and disorientation. The captain, who had been dealing with the circuit breakers, re-entered the picture and shouted, "Pull down, pull down." This command was likely intended to get the nose of the aircraft down to recover from the stall. However, the first officer, who was still holding his side stick, was simultaneously pulling back on it, the exact opposite input required. In an Airbus, the side sticks do not move together like a traditional yoke. The system averages the inputs. With both pilots making opposing commands, the aircraft's controlled surfaces were receiving confusing signals, preventing any chance of a successful recovery. The plane was now in what is known as an upset, a state from which it is incredibly difficult to escape, especially without proper training. The aircraft was falling at a terrifying rate, yet its nose was still pointed up. For 4 long minutes, the pilots battled for control, but the stall was irreversible. The final report from the NTSC was clear. The crash of Flight 8501 was caused by a combination of factors. It started with a chronic, unresolved maintenance issue that cracked soda joint, but the critical turning point was the crew's unorthodox response to it. The decision to pull the circuit breakers in flight created a situation they were not prepared to handle. The sudden loss of autopilot and flight protections, coupled with the challenging weather, led to spatial disorientation and the ultimate loss of control. The investigation highlighted a critical gap in pilot training. While pilots were trained to handle stalls, they weren't adequately prepared for an upset scenario in alternate law, where the aircraft behaved so differently. The confusion in the cockpit, with conflicting inputs and a breakdown in crew resource management, sealed the fate of everyone on board. It was a tragic example of how a small technical problem can cascade into a catastrophe when combined with human factors. In the wake of the tragedy, the aviation industry took significant steps to prevent a similar event from ever happening again. Airlines and regulators worldwide placed a renewed emphasis on upset prevention and recovery training, or UPRT. Pilots are now regularly trained in simulators on how to recognize and recover from extreme flight attitudes and stalls. Specifically in degraded flight control modes like alternate law, Airbus also issued new guidance, strongly reinforcing the procedure that flight crews should never pull circuit breakers. For the flight augmentation computers in flight, the crash of AirAsia 8501 served as a powerful and tragic reminder of the importance of adhering to standard operating procedures, the critical need for effective crew communication, and the continuous evolution of pilot training to keep pace with increasingly complex aircraft. The loss of 162 lives was a terrible price to pay, but the lessons learned from their story have undoubtedly made the skies safer for all of us. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more in-depth analyses of major aviation events.